Okay, well, I'll tell you the story. This will be another more weirdness thing here. I'll tell you the story about our landlady when I was a kid and the cat. And again, my friend, my former friend who went off the rails and often did. It was about a 30-year accumulation of things, or more than that, really, of things that had happened that resulted in the end of our friendship. My telling this story and her reaction to it was just um, the final straw, I guess. But anyway, I'll tell you what happened. Um, when I was 5 years old, our landlord and landlady lived next door, and I was friends with their daughters. I used to go over to their house sometimes and play with their daughters. And they had a lot of animals. They had race horses in the field out back that had gone blind. Some disease had gone through and blinded them all, but they were still there and living in the old barn and in the field out back. They had cats and dogs, and they always had animals around anyway. They had a lot of cats. I always liked cats, so I enjoyed going over there even to be around the cats. But and I liked the dogs too. I didn't like them as much as I liked the cats, but I did like them. And there was one dog in particular called Blackie who I used to play with quite a bit. Used to run around with him in the fields and whatnot. He was kind of an old dog, and he had parasites in his anus, and he was constantly licking his backside there, and it was all raw and bleeding and pussy. It was an awful mess. Anyway, here's the story. I went over to play with the landlord's daughters when I was 5 years old one time, and there was this big white cat, and it was just moping around the house. It didn't look well. And I said to one of the daughters, I said, "There's something wrong with that cat." And she said, "Well, yes, there is." They said, "The cat's going to die soon." So then it became a waiting around for the cat to die thing. We were all just waiting for this cat to die. And after a few hours, the cat did die. It just laid down on the floor up against the baseboard in the kitchen, and it died. It just passed away. Anyway, myself and the landlord's daughters, we all understood that the cat had passed away. Um, Probably 3 or 4 days, something like that, after the cat had died. I hadn't been back over there, but my mother needed to go over there and see the landlady. She had some business with her. And so um, I accompanied her next door to the landlord and landlady's house. When we went in there, this was an old farmhouse, and they had the old cook stove. You remember the old cook stove? It was a great big stove there with the plate warmer on the top of it and stuff, where it had that thing you could pull down and put plates in there to keep them hot and stuff above the cooking surface and all that. That's what it was anyway. They used to heat a good portion of the house with that stove, and they also cooked on it. They also had a regular electric stove. They even still had the old wooden hand crank telephone on the wall. They just never removed it. When they remodeled the kitchen a few years later, that telephone went to the dump. It'd be worth a fortune now, but in those days, a lot of stuff like that just went to the dump because it was just seen as junk. Back then, that's what it was, I guess. But anyway, um, when you walked into the kitchen, there was a distinct smell. When we walked into the kitchen that day, there was a smell. So, of course, I'm 5 years old. I'm going to look for the source of the smell. And I found it. My mom and the landlady were sitting at the table talking. and I found the source of the smell. The cat that had died several days earlier was laying on some newspapers behind the old cook stove, decomposing. That's what the smell was. Anyway, I said to the landlady, I won't say her name, but she's passed away now, but still, she still has family and whatnot. But I said to the landlady, I'll call her so-and-so, Mrs. So-and-so, this cat died several days ago. She said, well, that's it. That's the thing. I'm not so sure that it has died, and I don't want to bury it just in case. And I remember I said, Mrs. So-and-so, you can bury the cat. The cat is decomposing. you know, you can bury the cat. Anyway, it was stinking the place up. It was decomposing, and you could smell it. But anyway, so I'm telling my friend this story, and she goes insane on me, which she often would do. She used to do this fly off the handle a lot, and it was unpredictable. You never knew when it was going to happen. And she starts shrieking at me. How long does it take to die? How long does it take to die? And I started to say, well, it takes as long as it takes. Like, what do you mean, how long does it take to die? It takes a different length of time depending on the individual and how they're dying and everything else. I said, some people would say that we're dying from the moment we're born, that we're in the process of dying. But, I said, I can't answer that question. And she's just shrieking at me, how that's not what I'm asking. How long does it take to die? And she's just going crazy anyway. So after a few minutes of that, and not being able to talk sense to her, I got frustrated and I said, it takes 27 seconds to die. It always takes 27 seconds to die. There, are you happy? There's an answer for you. I said, it makes no sense. It's not a sensible answer, but then again, it's not a sensible question either, is it? So there you go. Again, see, this is how I handle irrational people, and this is one of the reasons that I'm seen. It makes me friggin' mad, But it's one of the reasons that I'm seen as being abusive to women. Because I'll talk to a woman that way. If you're going to be a stupid, then I'll talk to you like you're a stupid person, basically. I don't care who or what you are. The fact that you're a woman doesn't matter to me. If you're acting stupid, I'll talk to you like you're stupid. And that was just a stupid question. Anyway, so again, she says, so it doesn't take, what you said, or I said, well, maybe it does sometimes. I don't know. I said, you wanted an answer, I gave you an answer. It was a stupid question, so I gave you a stupid answer. And she says, don't ever lie to me again. Anyway, at that point, I told her, I said, well, you're just completely stupid. I said, you do this all the time. You freak out. You fly off the handle. You're a stupid person. And so she told me to leave her house, and I told her I would gladly do that, and I did. Didn't see or speak to her probably for 2 years. Other than one time there was a funeral of a mutual friend that we were both at, and we didn't speak. I had spoken to her son, but I never spoke to her at that. Her son was in his teens by that time. Anyway, what had happened, though, was a couple years later, her and her son showed up at my house. Just out of the blue, they showed up there. And she was being super nice. I let them in. I wasn't unfriendly with them or anything. But I remember thinking, I wonder what she wants. she wants something, because I knew what she was like, and she would use people and whatnot. She was always running some sort of a con. So I wondered what she wanted. Well, I found out a few days later. She showed up at my door. I saw her drive into my yard. I had a kind of a turnaround driveway, like a U driveway. And when she drove past, I saw her truck, and the truck was full of rotten wood. I remember thinking, well, maybe she's taking stuff that she's taken to the dump or something. She used to do dump runs with her truck and stuff, so I thought maybe that's what it was. Anyway, it turns out what it was is she wanted me to build flower planters out of that wood. It was the wood from her deck in the back of her house, which was rotten to the point where it wasn't safe to walk on it. 2 years before that, it wasn't safe. There were only certain boards you could step on and not go through it. And there weren't very many of them either that you could step on and not go through it. Anyway, it was the wood from that deck. And she wanted me to build a bunch of flower planters for her, and I told her no, I wasn't interested. You can't build anything out of rotten wood. Plus, she was a con artist, and I knew that. So, anyway, I wasn't interested. But that's the story there. Anyway, that's what happened. You can see how angry I got even relating the story. And again, that's another reason that I'm just staying well away from women at this point. The woman that I had the run-in with last year, with all the gaslighting that she did and everything, and she ran a con on me, ended up, she got $400 out of me that she borrowed from me, and I got 100 of it back, which I've been told is pretty good. Most people don't see any of the money. She's done this all over town, borrowed money and never paid it back.